I didn't know I was viral until a stranger recognized me in the grocery store. She stood behind me in the checkout line, holding oat milk and a frozen pizza. "You're that guy from TikTok, right? The emotional manipulator from the Toxic X series?" My hand clenched around the cereal box I was about to scan. "I think you've got the wrong guy," I said calmly, but my throat burned. She tilted her head. "No, it's you. Your face was in at least 4 of her videos." That was the moment I knew Barbara hadn't just moved on. She'd monetized our breakup. 3 weeks earlier, she walked out of my apartment without saying a word. No drama, no scene, just a text 10 minutes later. "It's better this way." I stared at that message for so long it dimmed my screen. We'd been together for 3 years. I didn't understand how she just vanished. No goodbye, no closure, just silence. I gave her time, a week, 2, then I took down the photo wall. 64 moments from our life together, firsts, trips, couch naps, midnight ramen, gone. Each frame I took down felt like I was peeling a memory from my own ribs, but I did it anyway, quietly, alone. It wasn't until Georgia sent me a message that I learned Barbara hadn't stayed quiet. "James, have you seen this?" she wrote. She attached a link. I hesitated, clicked. The video opened with Barbara's face in soft pink light. She looked flawless and cold. She spoke over sad piano music. "Sometimes love feels like control. You don't realize it until you can breathe again." Then a photo popped up. Our photo. I was mid-laugh. She was kissing my cheek. A caption over it read, "When he told me, I'll change, but he only got quieter." My stomach turned. Not just because she used our private moment for content, but because nearly 400,000 people had watched it. I liked it. Comment, "You're so brave. B. In there, healing with you. He gives insecure energy." She posted more the next day. Then again, every clip featured our photos, moments I thought were just ours, twisted, clipped, rewritten. She had turned us into a narrative where I was the villain, the silent manipulator, the emotionally unavailable guy who never listened, never cared, and the worst part, she never said my name. Just let the internet guess, and they did. Jason messaged me out of nowhere. "Bro, did Barbara use our old texts in her new video? She blurred names, but that convo sounded way too familiar." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. We both knew the answer. I wasn't angry yet, just stunned at how easily she'd repackaged years of real love into 30-second reels of emotional tragedy. Georgia invited me for coffee the next day. We hadn't talked much since the office party. I almost said no, but I went. She waited with 2 cups already on the table. "Thought you could use the stronger one," she said, sliding me the darker roast. I sat down without speaking. She didn't ask questions, just handed me her phone. More videos. Barbara. Another clip. Another voiceover. This time, the caption read, "He said he loved me, but it always felt like silence." Georgia looked at me. "You weren't silent, James. You were just tired." I clenched my jaw. "Doesn't matter. No one cares about my side." She hesitated, then said, "Then maybe it's time you show them." I laughed bitterly. "What? Start a counter-series?" She shrugged. "Or you just move on loud enough that no one can mistake it." I said nothing, but that sentence stuck. That night, I opened my photo folder, scrolled through the archive, saw Barbara's smile freeze frame after frame. I didn't delete them. I transferred them to a hard drive, then I named the folder, No Longer Ours. I stared at my reflection on the black screen, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel sad. I felt ready. My name is James, and I used to believe that being quiet meant being good. Listening more than speaking makes you a better partner, that if you stayed steady, calm, and careful, the person you loved would feel safe enough to stay. Barbara taught me otherwise. We met in the most ordinary way, through mutual friends at a rooftop party. She wore a burgundy dress and had this effortless way of commanding attention without trying. I didn't say much that night, just nodded and laughed at the right moments, but apparently she noticed me. Said I had a silent magnetism. That was Barbara's word. Magnetism. 2 weeks later, she messaged me out of nowhere. "Do you always stare at people like you're writing them into a novel?" I stared at the message for 15 minutes before replying. "Only when I think they'd be a good plot twist." That was our beginning. Barbara was loud where I was quiet, bold where I was careful. She believed in stories with drama, in emotions that demanded to be seen. She hated pauses, she hated stillness. She called silence emotional violence, and I didn't argue because I wasn't sure if she was wrong. In the early days, she made everything feel cinematic. She planned spontaneous trips, kissed me in elevators, pulled me into museums just to take photos in the mirrored installations. "I want memories that look good in motion," she said once, spinning under falling cherry blossoms. I filmed her. I always filmed her. And for a while, that was enough. I became the man who booked her last-minute flights, edited her captions, curated her Spotify playlists. She once posted a story with the caption, "He doesn't say much, but he moves mountains for me." I screenshotted it. I thought it meant something. Our fight started small. I forgot to comment on a post she'd made. She got upset, said I wasn't supportive enough. I said I didn't think validation had to be public. She called that avoidance. Later, she would say I always made her feel invisible. Which was strange, considering she was the only person I ever looked at when we were in a room full of people. The shift wasn't sudden. It was slow, like paint peeling off a wall you forgot to seal. She started documenting every moment. Our dinner conversations became story content. She'd pause mid-bite and say, "Hold that thought, I need better lighting." I'd sit there, fork suspended, while she moved things around the table for aesthetic reasons. When I finally said, "Can we just eat like humans?" she laughed and called me a dinosaur. It wasn't cruel, not at first, just careless. Barbara didn't mean to hurt people, she just didn't notice them bleeding. I told myself that I could handle it, that I was strong enough for the both of us, that love meant understanding her hunger for attention without needing it myself. But over time, I became a prop in her highlight reel. Someone who showed up well on camera, smiled on cue, and disappeared off-screen quietly. She started calling me boring, jokingly at first, then with a hint of frustration. "You never do anything spontaneous anymore," she said one night while we lay side by side, our backs not touching. "You don't listen anymore," I replied. She rolled away and fell asleep. Or at least pretended to. Georgia joined the company 6 months before Barbara and I ended. She had a background in copywriting and kept her hair tied in a clean bun every day, with exactly one stray strand always falling into her glasses. She wasn't flashy, she wasn't loud, she didn't try to be noticed, which made it impossible not to notice her. The first time we spoke, it was about fonts. I was frustrated over a deck that refused to align properly. She walked past, looked over my screen, and said, "Kerning problem. Try resetting the text box." I did. It worked. She didn't smile like she was proud, she just nodded and walked away. I remember thinking, that was oddly refreshing. We didn't talk again for weeks, not until Barbara flaked on the company retreat. She'd promised she'd come, then backed out the night before, said she had a collab shoot with a skincare brand. I told the team she had food poisoning. Georgia didn't comment. But the next morning, she left ginger tea on my desk. No note, no questions. That's when I realized that kindness doesn't always announce itself, sometimes it just shows up quietly and leaves no mess behind. Barbara and I ended the same way we began, without warning. She said she needed time to find herself again. I said okay, because arguing felt pointless. She didn't block me, didn't delete our photos, she just stopped being there, stopped replying, stopped calling. I waited. But then Georgia sent me that first TikTok, and everything changed. Seeing myself labeled as toxic wasn't the worst part, it was seeing the moments I once cherished turned into ammunition, photos I took, words I said, rewritten, recontextualized, repurposed for engagement. Barbara had turned our love into a campaign, and the audience was eating it up. Jason messaged a few days later. He and Barbara had dated years before me. He sent me a screenshot. It was a clip of an old text conversation. The punchline was familiar. "Is that what she said to you too?" he asked. I didn't answer, didn't have to. That weekend, I met Georgia for lunch. She asked if I was okay. I said, "Do I look okay?" She said, "You look like someone who's trying not to fall apart in public." I stared at my soup. Whispered, she didn't have to humiliate me. Georgia didn't offer advice, didn't tell me to move on or fight back. She just passed me a napkin and said, "You don't need to bleed where people can see it." That stuck it. With me. Because Barbara had taught me the opposite, that pain should be performed, that closure comes through applause. But with Georgia, silence felt safe. A few weeks later, we shared our first real laugh. Not the polite kind, the kind where I nearly dropped my coffee because she made an impression of our boss trying to understand Gen Z slang. We were sitting in the back office, no cameras, no captions, just two people rediscovering what it felt like to breathe. I didn't tell her what that meant to me, not yet, but I didn't have to, she already knew, and for the first time in a long time, I began to feel like a person again, not a story, not a series, not a lesson, just James. Barbara's next post crossed a line. It opened with a voicemail, my voice. Hey, let me know you got home safe, I can't sleep when you disappear like this. Then the caption appeared, bold white text over our beach photo. He made me feel like I owed him my every move. She'd stripped my concern of its context and made it a weapon. Turned something as human as worry into control. That clip hit over 1 million views in 12 hours. I didn't watch the comments, Georgia did. She sat me down during lunch break, her phone in hand. They're calling you a narcissist, she said quietly. I let out a dry breath. I was worried she'd gotten into a car accident. That night, she didn't reply for 5 hours. I know, Georgia said. But they don't. That night, I locked my phone in my desk drawer. But the next morning, Barbara posted again. This time, she used a clip of our anniversary video, the one I edited for her, back when I still thought love could be proven with effort. We were on the Ferris wheel, she leaned against me, the city lights behind us. Her voice said, "Do you really love me, James?" And mine replied, "Always." The caption over it now read, "I learned that even lies sound soft when whispered high above the ground." I hadn't lied, I had meant every word. But now, that moment belonged to Strang. Orskill and strangers had decided I was guilty. At the office, a few people started avoiding me, some stared too long, others stopped talking when I entered the room. Georgia noticed. "You don't have to sit with them," she said during lunch, "come with me." We sat in the back conference room. She brought me miso soup, I brought silence. "You're allowed to be angry," she said. "I'm just tired." You know she's trying to provoke you, right? She wants a reaction, even a negative one is attention. I know. Then don't give her one. I looked at Georgia. She's not just trying to humiliate me, she's trying to rewrite me. That night, I deleted Instagram. But I couldn't delete the ache. Barbara's posts became more theatrical. One video had her crying silently as text scrolled over a black background. He used silence as punishment. He made me feel like a burden when I asked for affection. He said I was dramatic when I was just trying to be heard. I recognized those moments. I recognized my own face in the screenshots, but I didn't recognize the story. She was turning our relationship into a tragedy, one where she was the battered heroine, and I was the cold, quiet villain. Jason messaged me again. "You good?" I typed, "Define good." He replied, "She's done this before, not this publicly, but I've seen this cycle." I asked, "Did you love her?" There was a pause, then. I thought I did, but I think I just didn't want to be the bad guy in her story. That hit harder than I expected. Georgia called later that evening. No text, just a call. "Are you home?" she asked. "Yeah." "Come downstairs." I found her outside my building, holding a paper bag. "Thought you might not have eaten," she said. "I made too much." She handed me the bag and turned to leave. "Georgia," I said. She stopped. "Why are you doing this?" She turned back, eyes meeting mine. "Because I believe you." It was such a simple sentence, but I hadn't realized until then how much I needed someone to say it. That weekend, we walked through the park, quiet, slow, careful. I told her stories I hadn't told anyone, about the way Barbara used to flinch at thunder, how she collected postcards but never mailed them, how she cried when she watched animated movies but never shed a tear at real things. Georgia listened, no judgment, no interruptions, just space. She told me about her brother, about the time she left home at 18 with nothing but a duffel bag and a scholarship, about her first heartbreak and how silence became her comfort. "I'm not used to being seen," she said softly. "Me neither." And in that moment, I felt something shift, not a love declaration, not a spark, just a thread. Quiet, strong, real. Then Barbara messaged me, just one sentence. Did you delete our anniversary video from your drive? I stared at it for a long time, then I replied, why? Planning to post another episode? She left me to read. Later that night, she uploaded a new video. It was different this time, no dramatic music, no captions, just a pan of our apartment, well, her new place, but decorated almost identically to the one we had shared. Same light fixture, same gray curtains, same photo frames, only this time, filled with abstract art instead of us. She looked into the camera and said, healing looks different for everyone. For me, it means reclaiming the space I gave away. The comments praised her, called her brave, raw, authentic. I wasn't even angry anymore. I just felt erased. Georgia found me in the copy room the next day. Bad day? She asked. Just realizing how easily someone can delete you with a filter. She leaned against the counter. She can't delete who you are, just who she told people you were. Sometimes that's enough. Then tell them something different. I don't want a public war. Then don't go public, just live better. I looked at her. With you? She smiled, Ed faintly. If you want. A week later, Barbara showed up at my apartment. Unannounced, lip gloss, clean white coat, perfect as always. I just wanted to return this, she said, holding up a small box. Inside was the watch I bought her last winter. You could have mailed it, I said. She shrugged. I wanted to see you. I stepped aside, not inviting her in, but not pushing her away either. She looked around, eyes scanning the apartment. You changed the rug. I also changed the locks. She blinked. Right. Silence. Then she asked, did you love me, James? I didn't hesitate. Yes. Do you still? No. Her eyes flickered, she nodded slowly. I see. She placed the box on the counter, started to leave, paused at the door. I know you saw the videos, she said. I did. I wasn't trying to hurt you. But you did. She swallowed. You were always quiet. I didn't know how to fill the silence. And I didn't know how to be louder without becoming someone else. Another pause, then she whispered, is there someone else? Yes. She smiled faintly, not bitter, I just resigned. She's lucky. She's honest. Barbara looked down, then nodded once and left. I stood there for a while, not sad, not angry, just still. Then I picked up my phone. Georgia, I said, dinner? I'll cook, she replied, but you're washing dishes. Fair deal. Some nights, I still heard Barbara's laugh in my apartment, not from memory, not from longing, but from muscle memory. Echoes that bounced off the walls, reminders of someone who once filled the air with noise, drama, light. Now those sounds are gone, and in their place was something far more unnerving, quiet, not peace, not yet. The kind of quiet that presses on your chest at 3 a.m. when the city's asleep and even your breathing feels too loud. That's when the doubt crawled in. Was I really as good as I believed? Was I the villain in a story I never meant to write? Was I the man Barbara said I was, cold, unavailable, repressive? Georgia said no, with her hands, her presence, her steady gaze. But Barbara had millions of strangers agreeing. And there's a strange kind of loneliness that comes from being misinterpreted by the world. You start to wonder if the lie has more weight than the truth. If enough people believe it, does it become real? I scrolled through Barbara's latest video in silence. This one had piano keys and rain sounds. She looked tired, softer, almost honest. I don't hate him, she said, but I hate how invisible I felt beside him. And somehow, that hurt more than if she had screamed. Because maybe she had been invisible, maybe I didn't see her panic when I pulled away during fights, maybe I wasn't warm enough, maybe I chose silence too often. I closed the app, set my phone face down. The guilt clung to my skin like humidity, heavy, impossible to ignore. The next morning, Georgia brought over soup, again. I swear you survive on liquids and existential dread, she joked. I tried to smile, failed. She sat down beside me on the couch. You watched the new one, didn't you? I nodded. She's getting better at making people cry. I nodded again. Georgia reached over and took my hand. James, if you really believe you failed her, then own it. But don't wear guilt that doesn't belong to you. I wonder if I really wasn't enough. Not loud enough. Not romantic enough. Not present enough. You were exactly you, and that wasn't what she needed. I looked away. Then maybe I'm the problem. No. You were just in the wrong story. Georgia always knew how to quiet the noise in my head, but even she couldn't stop the memories from ambushing me. Like the night Barbara curled up on the kitchen floor, crying because a brandy Al fell through. She'd whispered, "What if I stop mattering to people?" And I didn't say the right thing. I said, "That's not true." Not, "I'd still love you if no one else watched." Not, "You matter even when you're still." I was trying to comfort her, but maybe I had made her feel dismissed. Maybe. My brain had become a theater of endless reruns, every argument, every missed cue, every silence. Jason called that night. I saw her post, the crying one. Yeah. She used to do that with me too. Right after we broke up, I blamed myself for months. Thought maybe if I'd just taken more photos with her, posted more couple pics, been more marketable, I would have lasted longer. I said nothing. He sighed. But then I realized something. If love needs to be validated by strangers, then it's not love, it's performance. Do you think she loved us at all? He hesitated. I think she loved how we made her look. I ended the call and sat in the dark for a long time. Then, without thinking, I got up and opened the hallway closet. In the back, behind old camera gear and winter coats, was a box. The last box. The one with our Polaroids. I hadn't burned them, I hadn't even opened it. I sat cross-legged on the floor and lifted the lid. There we were. In film, in fragments, laughing in blurry frames, holding hands under street lamps. She is asleep on my chest. I studied each one like it was forensic evidence. Trying to find the moment the truth snapped, trying to see if her eyes ever held resentment I didn't catch. But all I saw was two people doing their best, and sometimes, your best doesn't save it. That realization didn't bring relief, just a deeper ache. Georgia found me the next day at the park. I hadn't told her I was going, but somehow, she showed up, like always. I figured you'd be spiraling. Was it that obvious? You forget I've seen. You drink 4 cups of coffee and forget your own keys. I smiled, barely. She sat down beside me on the bench. Did you open the box? I nodded. And? I think I wanted to hate her, but I don't. You're not supposed to. I don't think I know what love is anymore. Georgia looked at me, long and quiet. Then she said, "Love isn't the absence of silence, it's what survives after it." I turned toward her. What if I'm too broken to try again? She laughed softly. You're not broken, you're healing. I don't feel healed. Healing feels like tearing open the same wound until it scars. I didn't respond, just leaned back. She laced her fingers with mine. You don't have to figure it out tonight. But I want to. I know. That's the problem. Weeks passed. Barbara stopped posting. Or maybe I just stopped checking. Georgia started leaving her toothbrush at my place, then socks, then a drawer. It wasn't fast, it wasn't loud. But it was real. One morning, I caught her looking at my old bookshelf. Her finger hovered over a framed photo turned backward. You don't have to hide the past to be with me, she said. I walked over, flipped the frame around. It was me and Barbara, at a bookstore. She wore my hoodie. I looked dazed, half asleep. I picked up the frame, opened the back, removed the photo. I'm not hiding it, I said. I'm just done carrying it. Georgia didn't smile, but she reached for the empty frame and slid a new picture in, one we'd taken last week, her holding up a burnt pancake. I laughed. It fits. That night, as I watched her sleep, a thought came that startled me. I didn't miss Barbara anymore. I didn't hate her either. I just didn't feel anything at all. And maybe that's how healing actually works. Not with fireworks, not with perfect closure, but with quiet rewrites, one honest page at a time. It started with a news notification, not a headline, just an alert. TikTok creator Barbara Knight launches memoir deal with Echo Publishing. Subheading, based on her Vine Rail series Toxic X Chronicles, Barbara Knight is set to release her debut book, blending personal reflections and romantic survival stories. I read it twice, then a third time. Georgia looked up from the couch. You okay? I turned my phone toward her. She read it, then let out a slow breath. She's writing a book? She's selling our story. Georgia hesitated. Do you think she'll name you? She doesn't have to. The news spread fast. That night, Barbara posted a soft-lit video, sipping tea, acoustic guitar playing faintly. She spoke into the camera. Every story has multiple sides. This is mine. For anyone who's ever been gaslit by quiet partners who weaponized patience, this is for you. The comments were already full of pre-orders, heart emojis, and strangers thanking her for speaking out. Georgia and I sat at opposite ends of the kitchen table. I stared at my hands. I thought she was done. She wasn't done. She was just reloading. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying everything I had said to her. Every text, every voicemail. What if she had more of them? What if the book painted me as a shadow? A ghost who loved quietly and hurt without meaning to? What if this time, she didn't blur the lines at all? The next morning, I woke up to find my inbox full. 3 podcast invites, 2 local journalists requested comments, 1 message from Jason. You see this? She's publishing names now. Mine's on page 2 of the press copy. I didn't even get a heads up. I read his message twice before responding. Do you have a copy? He replied within seconds. Yep, it's already circulating in reviewer circles. Want me to send you the PDF? I hesitated, then, yes. The file came minutes later. I didn't open it immediately. Georgia came home early. I hadn't told her I requested the manuscript, but she saw it on my laptop, paused in the doorway. You read it? I shook my head. Not yet. She walked over, touched my shoulder. You sure you want to open that? No. But I need to know. She nodded and stepped away. Gave me space. I clicked the file, scrolled. Chapter 1, The Quiet Kind. There was no mistaking it. He wasn't violent, he wasn't loud, he didn't yell, but he made me question if I was too much, too emotional, too dramatic. I called it love, but looking back, it was silence made of knives. I scanned further. There it was. My name. She changed the last name, but left the first. James. Mentioned my job, my city, my quiet apartment, the trips, the fights, every detail that made it unmistakably me. She told stories from our relationship, not fabricated, just bent. Real moments, warped by tone, twisted by absence of full context. She wrote, I remember crying on the bathroom floor, and James just stood there, watching, cold, distant. What she didn't say was that I'd held her hand for 3 hours that night, that she told me not to speak. She said, I just need to scream. She wrote, he once told me I was exhausted. What I actually said was, loving you sometimes feels like trying to hold on to lightning. I'm tired. She told the truth, just enough to be untrue. When I closed the laptop, my hands were shaking. Georgia was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables like nothing had happened. I walked in, she looked up. You okay? No? Want to talk about it? I nodded, but I didn't say anything for a long time. Finally, I said, she's good at making pain poetic. Georgia's jaw tightened. She's good at making her version the only one that survives. I don't know how to stop her. You can't. But I don't want to disappear like this, not again. Then don't. Later that week, Barbara's publisher emailed me. Subject, request for response before final manuscript publication. They wanted to offer a courtesy. Said my name would be changed, but the inspiration was acknowledged in the acknowledgements. I forwarded it to Jason. He replied, they offered me the same thing, I declined. I sat on it for hours. Then I replied to the publisher. I do not consent to the use of any identifying details and will pursue legal action if defamation or invasion of privacy is found. They responded in under an hour. Thank you for your feedback. We'll note your position. Legal is aware. That was it, just a disclaimer. They didn't need my permission. Barbara posted a new clip that night. She didn't speak, just filmed herself sitting alone at a window, holding the manuscript. The caption, some stories have been burning in my chest for years, this is mine. Over 1 million likes in 24 hours. And me? I sat in the back of Georgia's car, gripping the armrest, wondering how much more of myself I'd have to watch get recycled. At one point, I muttered, It's like she wants to be right more than she ever wanted to be loved. Georgia glanced over. You know what scares her the most? What? That you moved on without needing to explain yourself. I looked at her. She just sold our silence for profit. Georgia's voice was steady. Then maybe it's time to speak. The book launch was scheduled for Saturday, downtown, velvet rope event, glass walls, press wall backdrop, catered hors d'oeuvres. It was the kind of space Barbara thrived in. Jason had sent me the flyer 2 days prior. Not asking you to show up, he wrote, just figured you'd want to know. Georgia found me staring at it on my screen. Tell me you're not going, she said. I wasn't planning on it. But now you are. I nodded. She crossed her arms. Tell me why. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, because I want her to see what moving on actually looks like. Georgia didn't argue. She just said, then I'm coming too. Saturday came fast. I wore black, simple blazer. Georgia wore a dark green dress, elegant, understated, entirely non-Barbara. We didn't speak much on the drive there, but her hand stayed on my knee the entire ride. When we arrived, the place was already buzzing. Influencers, reviewers, podcasters, cameras. Barbara was easy to spot, center of the room, flanked by people smiling too hard. She wore cream silk and glossy lipstick, her hair pulled into a tight updo. She laughed as if the entire night was scripted. Her book was on display everywhere, the quiet kind, surviving subtle emotional abuse. Front cover, a watercolor of a woman looking out a rainy window. Back cover, her author photo, and below it, in bold italics, inspired by true events. We weren't on the guest list, but someone recognized Georgia from a campaign and waved us in. When Barbara saw us, her smile faltered, just for a second. Then she pulled it back up and started walking toward us like she was gliding across a red carpet. James, she said smoothly, didn't expect to see you here. I'm full of surprises lately. Her eyes flicked to Georgia, who didn't flinch under the stare. And this is? Georgia, she said, offering her hand. Reader, civilian, non-fictional. Tars. Bara gave a tight laugh, but I saw her jaw twitch. You came for the launch? I shrugged. I came for the closure. Closure, she echoed, feigning confusion. I thought you already made peace with the past. I did, I said. You're the one still publishing it. For a moment, she didn't reply, then she glanced around, made sure we weren't being recorded, and lowered her voice. Everything I wrote happened. Maybe not the way you saw it, but it happened to me. I nodded slowly. That's the thing about stories, Barbara. They only need one side to go viral, but they need the truth to last. Her expression shifted, cold, defensive. I didn't use your name. You used my face, my words, my voice. She straightened. So what do you want? An apology? No, I just want you to know something. She raised an eyebrow. I leaned in, lowered my voice. You didn't destroy me. You made me visible, to myself. For years I shrank to fit your spotlight, but now I know who I am outside of your lens, and that's something you can't post about. She blinked, and for a second I saw something behind her eyes, regret, maybe, or envy. It vanished fast. Georgia touched my arm. We should go. Barbara's lips parted like she wanted to say more, but she didn't. We turned away. The cameras didn't follow us, the crowd didn't care, but I felt lighter with every step, like I'd just burned the last version of myself I didn't recognize. Outside, the air was crisp. Georgia exhaled like she'd been holding it in all night. Did you get what you needed? She asked. I nodded. She knows I'm not a ghost. We walked in silence back to the car. But I wasn't done yet. 2 days later, I sent an email to the editor-in-chief of The Current, local magazine, big audience. Subject line, a response to The Quiet Kind. Inside was an essay. Title, What It's Like to Be the Villain in Someone Else's Bestseller. I told my version, not to attack, not to destroy, just to exist. I described our relationship honestly, the flaws, the disconnect, the love that didn't survive translation. I wrote, we both hurt each other, she with her noise, me with my silence, but silence isn't always violence, sometimes it's protection, from being misheard, from speaking in a storm that only drowns you. They published it the next week. The headline went modestly viral. Comments poured in, some doubted, some related, but the point wasn't to win, it was to show that stories don't have to be loud to matter. Barbara didn't respond publicly, but 2 weeks later, she took down 3 of her most watched videos. Jason texted. She's rattled, probably won't admit it, but she knows now, people are watching the other side too. Georgia and I celebrated with takeout, spicy noodles, bad TV, bare feet on the coffee table. At some point, she looked at me and said, "Proud of you." I smiled. I didn't even scream. You didn't have to. That night, I didn't dream about Barbara. I didn't relive the fights, didn't wake up wondering what I could have done differently. Instead, I dreamed of a quiet house, sun through curtains, laughter from the kitchen, a woman's voice humming to herself. It wasn't a fantasy, it was a memory we hadn't made yet, but we would, because I wasn't a ghost anymore, and the person beside me wasn't a distraction. She was the rewrite, and I was finally ready to live the story no one needed to monetize. 6 weeks after the book launch, The Quiet Kind dropped from bestseller lists. Barbara's final livestream marked the end of her press run. She looked different, less polished, makeup too perfect to be effortless. Her voice had lost the rehearsed sweetness it carried before. "I just want to thank everyone who supported me," she said into the camera. "Telling your story isn't always easy, but it's necessary." The view count peaked, then plateaued, then fell. In the comments, people weren't just praising her anymore. Some asked, "Why'd you delete the Ferrer? Is Wheel video? Why not acknowledge James's article? Was it really all his fault?" One comment read, "She called him silent, but his words cut cleaner than her edits ever did." That was the turning point. The Current had reprinted my essay. Then Men's Sphere picked it up. Then a psychology blogger broke it down in a video essay titled The Weaponization of Selective Memory. Even Jason did a podcast interview. He spoke about how being rewritten by someone you once loved was a betrayal that didn't leave bruises, but left scars all the same. Barbara stayed quiet, until she didn't. I got the email on Thursday. Subject: Closure. From Barbara Knight. There were no greetings, no passive-aggressive openings, just this. "I didn't think it would go this far. I didn't think people would care about your version, but maybe I forgot what you were capable of when you stopped staying silent." I read it twice, then I closed it. Georgia was in the kitchen, dancing barefoot to a playlist we made on a rainy Sunday. I watched her for a while before she noticed. She smiled. "You look like you saw a ghost." "Just deleted one," I replied. The email stayed unread. I never responded. Because Barbara had already gotten the only answer she deserved: irrelevance. The real revenge wasn't exposure, it wasn't a louder platform or a trending post, it was a quiet, complete life she couldn't touch anymore. 3 months later, I published a short story, fiction, loosely inspired, names changed, no TikTok, no book deals. Just a man who learned how to stop letting people write his narrative for him. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't viral, but it was mine. And it reached inboxes that mattered. One day, I opened an email from an editor at a literary journal. "We loved your story, we'd love more." And just like that, the narrative shifted. Jason messaged again around then. "Funny how we all got closure in silence, irony, huh?" Georgia started painting again. She said she hadn't picked up a brush in years. Our living room now had a wall filled with skies she said were inspired by how I made her feel. Steady, open, unpredictably calm. Sometimes, I'd catch her humming, hair in a messy bun, wearing my shirt like it was armor. She never asked about Barbara, and I never offered, because there was nothing left to say. But the final chapter came when I least expected it. I was walking home from the grocery store, same place where the first stranger had recognized me. Only this time, I saw her first. Barbara. She was on the other side of the street, alone, phone in hand, no one filming. She looked up, saw me, paused, no smile, no waves, just recognition. I gave a slight nod. She didn't cross the street, didn't chase, didn't perform. Just stood there, frozen. Watching the man she couldn't narrate anymore. I walked away. Because the version of me she created had died the day I stopped waiting to be understood. Revenge didn't need a microphone, it just needed peace louder than her story. And I had that now,